Hi, this is Jeffrey Agrell. I'm the author of Improvisation Games for Classical Musicians, and you're watching Musicality Now.
Hi, my name's Christopher. I'm the founder and director of Musical U, and welcome to Musicality Now. Today on the show, I have the pleasure of interviewing one of my favorite people in the world of music education, the man who's been pioneering a game-based approach to learning improvisation, specifically geared towards musicians who don't take improv for granted and may not play the instruments or styles of music which we typically associate with improvising. Geoffrey Agrell was a professional French horn player, up to the level of becoming a college professor in horn at the University of Iowa in the year 2000, before realizing that his heart just wasn't in it for years and decades of repeating the same classical music repertoire and performances. That led to him exploring and developing ways for classical music players to begin improvising, not by switching their attention to jazz, but in ways that were fully compatible with their classical music perspective, but still set them free from the sheet music. He has since written 9 books on improvisation games, including Improvisation Games for Classical Musicians, which by itself features over 500 games you can use to learn to improvise in an easy and enjoyable way. When I interviewed Jeffrey for EasyEarTraining.com back in 2016, we called the post Game Your Way to Impressive Improvising, because I was eager to make the point that a game-based approach to learning to improvise is not just a frivolous way to have fun, but a highly effective way to learn to improvise. And what's more, improvising is not a distraction or a diversion from becoming a great musician, but in fact could be a critical and generally missing part of it. Jeffrey is a master of metaphors and analogies, so this conversation is packed with taxi drivers and fish on bicycles, talking babies, brontosaurus anatomy, 10,000 eggs, and more. He paints really vivid pictures of the limitations and problems with traditional classical music training, and what learning to improvise can look like. He shares a simple idea and a range of examples of how you can transform practicing scales into something that's enjoyable, creative, and ultimately even more effective for improving your instrument technique. He shares exactly how much theory knowledge, instrument technique, and oral skills are required to improvise, and how and why to learn improv with a musical friend, even if neither of you have any knowledge or experience of improv before starting. I'm confident that whatever your relationship with improvising, whether it's non-existent or highly developed, you're going to discover some fresh inspiration and guidance in this episode for how to more fully express the musician you have inside through the art of improvisation. My name's Christopher Sutton, and this is Musicality Now from Musical U. Welcome to the show, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So I was saying to you before we hit record that I consider your interview on our website one of the best pieces of material we have on improvisation. And I often think of you in the context of learning improv for a couple of reasons. The first is that you approach it not from a jazz perspective, but specifically from a classical perspective, something that I think a lot of people imagine is the antithesis of improvisation. And you also specialize in improvisational games, which to me is maybe the epitome of what learning improv should feel like and how we should approach it. And so you're always at the back of my mind, and I regret that we have not had you on the show much sooner. So I'm delighted to have you with us today, and I'd love to dive into all of this and unpack it with you. Before we do, though, I know only kind of a nutshell summary bio of where you've come from yourself as a musician. So I wonder if we could go all the way back to the beginning and talk about how you learned music yourself.
Well, the very first thing I did was sing a solo in a children's operetta when I was in the 5th grade. In the 6th grade, I started playing horn in band. In the 9th grade, I was messing around in a party on a guitar, and then I said, I've got to have one of these. So I started on that. So I started the two channels, the two, I don't know, rivers of music in my life that have flowed along in parallel ever since. One is the classical horn world, and the other one is the, I don't know what you call it, folk do-it-yourself one, which was, I've done many things, mostly guitar. Guitar, banjo, little mandolin. Had a little time with a fiddle, auto harp, dulcimer, all that stuff. later on, even while I was playing in the orchestra, I was learning jazz guitar and bluegrass and all that. So, like I said, it was these two parallel rivers that really didn't mix because I learned classical the way everybody else does. Everything is written down. And in the other one, nothing is written down. Although I did play classical guitar for a while, and that was, written down, of course. But I had these two worlds that didn't mix until very late. And I would love to help people start mixing them many decades earlier than I did.
Gotcha. It's fascinating, and I think in my experience, there aren't many people who study classical music to the level you have, and on an instrument like French horn, who keep that second river flowing, as it were. You know, you described fairly early on dabbling on guitar and really finding an affinity for that side of music making too. Was there anything in your family or education that, or maybe your personality, that meant you kind of juggled the two in a way that not many classical musicians do?
Oh, well, most people play piano. Fewer play guitar. I also had, in a way, I did a lot of things that were kind of just waiting for this to happen. It just took a long time. I also did improvisational theater when I was in college. Just kind of fell into that in some ways. And they were just separate. There was no roadmap for doing anything any different that way. You had the guitar didn't seem to mix with anything unless you were playing in a pit orchestra and sitting next to the classical musicians. And the classical was very well defined. You didn't do anything except what someone else had prepared for you. That was it. Everything was and still is almost everywhere, all defined the way we do it. And my the way I got out of. Do you want to? Should I mention how I got out of that?
Please do, yeah. I was about to ask.
Yeah, boredom. You work very hard on classical because of it's a tough business to get into, and you have to show up and do things the same, be very consistent every day, over and over. And you're only good as your last performance, and the performance is ranked on how perfectly did you play, how perfectly did you follow orders. The scorer and the conductor, did you do exactly what they said? We do not want to hear your ideas. We want to hear their ideas, and can you recreate them? And it's early on, it's very exciting to play in an orchestra and do all that stuff. But the problem is, it's always the same. And after a while, it comes around again. The repertoire comes around again, and okay, that was really fun the first time. It was really fun the first 70 performances of that. But gradually, it is, for me anyway, it was less interesting because it was predictable. It was also stressful. So predictable gives you boring. Stressful, it means you can't do it any other way and you can't miss anything. You do it 5,000 times right, you don't get to miss it on 5,001. So it was a toxic mix of stressful and boring most of the time. I mean, there were wonderful times with certain conductors, certain pieces, of course. But after doing that for many years, and then starting university teaching, I had to start doing something dangerous. I started thinking. Because you don't have to think, you just have to follow orders when you're doing only classical all the time. Well, I didn't only do that because that part of the day that you may have a morning rehearsal and an evening performance, but you have the afternoon free. If you're already playing 6 or 7 hours a day, you're probably not going to practice much. So you have time to do whatever you want. And I spent that time working on guitar, doing composing. I've composed a lot, writing. I like to write. And developing that side of it. So when I started teaching at the University of Iowa 20 years ago, I had to deal with this very terrible attitude of mine, which was bored. I don't even like to play the horn anymore. I mean, really, you can't do that as a teacher. So what are you going to do? And what I did was all right, what if I combine these two things that I have done all my life? And how do you do that? How do you combine this thing, which is all this, and the other thing, which is none of that? Later, I gave those names. The classical side I called the literate side, which is you only deal with notated things that are written down, things that are by somebody else. And the oral/creative side, which is where you don't use notation, or very seldom. You write down, you do things different every time, exact opposite of classical music. What I tell in my classes, I said, when you're improvising in creative music, you try to do it differently every time. No matter how wonderful and creative and beautiful and amazing that last improv was, don't ever do it again. Do something new. In classical, it's exactly the opposite. You do it one way, and then you do that the same way every time. So I didn't really know what to do, but I just started experimenting. I had a wonderful collaborator who was a student. He was a jazz pianist, and he, for some strange reason, agreed to work with me. And we experimented. We tried things, but not jazz. I mean, I was a jazz guitarist, but that wasn't me on the horn. I didn't want to. There's some amazing jazz horn players, but I'm not one of them. I didn't really want to try to fit into that repertoire and that technique and things. I wanted to use what I already had. And so we tried this, we tried that. He was a composer, I was a composer. So we came up with ways to do it. I felt like a guy with a machete in a jungle, just trying to slash away and carve a path somehow. If there were paths out there, I couldn't see them. I had to invent something that I could live with and enjoy and do something with. And then I was very lucky because I got to give a course because they needed somebody to jump in and give an improv course. It was the intro jazz course, so I made it half jazz and half not jazz. That didn't really work because people who wanted to do the jazz part, this was not enough jazz, and people who didn't want to do jazz part, it was way too much jazz. So it was solved the following year when we split that into two sections. So I was the non-jazz, somebody else did the jazz one. And that student became my TA. He went to grad school and got his master's in jazz piano. And the first 5 years of that course, of what the discoveries were, became the first volume of my book, Improvisation Games for Classical Musicians. So it was a scary time. I was terrified to start. I had to. I only did it because people don't like change. I didn't like change. You change if you're forced to, if you have to, and I had to. So I was that much more curious and bored than I was terrified. I was still terrified because what is the worst thing you can do in classical music? Make a mistake. Don't miss the note. Oh, especially for horn players. Don't make a mistake. It's all we're obsessed with, and that is one of the things that keeps us from trying anything, this terror of making a mistake. When you're doing creative music, you go, oh boy, something I didn't expect. Wonderful. Now I'm going to discover something new could have never planned for. And so it's a happy occasion, and you turn that into something brand new, something interesting. So it's a completely different mindset. And so I discovered pretty early on the barrier to anyone making their own music has nothing to do with your technique. It doesn't matter the level of your playing. We are deceived in that because we think improv is jazz, and jazz you need years of hard study. Absolutely. And that because we don't want to play a wrong note, although in jazz they say you're never more than a half step from a good note. So even jazz players work with that, but classical players, It's like sticking your finger in an electric socket if you make any kind of mistake and you hate it and you don't want to do it. So you're not going to play something new that you don't see written down. That's just too terrifying to even contemplate. And so that is the biggest hurdle to get over. How do I start? How do I get beyond the terror I feel for not playing what the note somebody told me so I can feel safe?
I have such admiration for you hacking away at that jungle, as it were. You know, here at Musical U, we often talk about how learning an instrument often just means instrument technique and repertoire and reading the notes on the page and being pigeonholed. Whatever the genre, often that's what learning music seems to boil down to for people. And it takes, as you say, confidence or courage rather to depart from that and try something creative where all of your lessons to date have told you that mistakes are bad and you shouldn't play a wrong note. It does take courage to explore a different option. And I think that goes doubly in your case, where you weren't just coming away from instrument technique, you were coming away from a very high level career in classical music, a university post no less, and kind of breaking new ground when it comes to what improv can be. And obviously, we now all enjoy the fruits of that through your books. You've raised that major barrier, that fear of mistakes, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from my perspective, the fact that you specialize not in improvisational methods or the theory of improv, but in improv games is a big part of the solution to that. Would you agree?
Improv games is packaging um, the subject so that it is easily, it helps people start. Um, you could do just fine without the book if you wanted to. Now, I hope everybody buys the book. You, you, you don't need it to start. You don't need anything to start except a new attitude that you feel you have permission to try something. Um, and that uh, since I think the biggest problem, and I think my biggest area, I've written, I have not like 9 books now on the improv games and everything. And what I'm more focused on these days is being kind of a, I don't know, rabble rouser a little bit in the entire focus of music curricula, especially instrumental curricula. I think there's so many either inefficient or downright toxic traditions that we're used to. They're just no good, or they're not, they don't do what they should. They just are there because they're easy to do. Do we ever talk about why the typewriter keyboard is the way it is?
No.
Because that has a direct parallel to the way we study music. The reason that the QWERTY, QWERTY is laid out that way is to be purposely bad, because it was designed for typewriters. I don't know if anyone still remembers what they look. You can find them in museums, because you press down a key and then a little key goes forward and it hits a ribbon which puts the imprint of a letter on there. Now, in the early typewriters, and even the later ones, if you type too fast, you will jam the keys. So the inventors thought, how can we make this really bad so that we slow them down? Because it takes time to then fix that. If you jam the keys, you have to stop. So let's make this as awful as possible so we can slow them down. Of course, today there's a much better system called the Dvorak system, in which the most used keys are in the home row under the strongest fingers, so you don't have to move. Almost no one does that because we're all raised in the way that we have been, this tradition. We don't think about it. Being electronic keyboards make it a lot easier, but nevertheless, it's an extremely inefficient way to do things that we have done. And there are many things in not just music, but in lots of traditions that are built into the curriculum, the way of teaching that everybody knows. I learned, you learned, everybody learned, but we don't question because we don't, in classical music, one of the toxic paradigms is you only take orders. You don't you don't have permission, or it's never mentioned to you that you can try things and explore and discover, and maybe there's something different. So that is maybe the number one awful part of this kind of music study, is that we're just really good parrots. We are excellent recreators and repeaters. Boy, are we good at that. Man, we get so good at that. But we have a creative art without creativity in general. English majors write essays and poems. Art students, can you imagine if art was only copying over the Mona Lisa and other masterpieces? That's all you do. That's what we do in music. No, they paint pictures. They paint their own pictures. They do sculpting. Dance, do choreographed dances, but they also do improv dance, a thing called contact improv. I've worked with dancers in that way. The most fun concert I ever gave in my life was improvised, 5 improvised players and a stage full of dancers. And we were watching the other one, listening to the other one, and improvising from what we saw and they heard. That was just amazing. Anyway, theater people, they learn plays, but they all learn improv. And but when we come to music, nobody does anything except recreate. And boy, we're good at that. That's all we do. So we've left out half of being a complete musicians. We've left out this oral creative side. I had the two sides, but not together on my one instrument. If you want more examples of the really, let's say, toxic is maybe too strong, but the less efficient. A QWERTY keyboard is still a keyboard, but it's just not very efficient. One of them is oral skills, which everybody takes in school. We do it only on singing and piano. Great, wonderful. What about our instrument? That's the most important thing. I should be learning that on my horn. I shouldn't be spending all this time at the expense of doing it on the horn. And there's many ways in the book. Of course, I have there's 2 books now, volume 1, volume 2. I have many examples on how you can do oral games on the instrument, any instrument. Horn, of course, is mine. That's another one. Another one, one of my favorite pet peeves. I don't know if you can let me keep going here. I apologize.
Let's do one more and then move on.
All right, one more is scales. The revered way of doing scales is to play octave scales. Up the scale, keep going up, keep going up. Don't we feel good about ourselves? We can just play these long scales, and we're just so wonderful. But tell me a piece, at least for horn. Tell me a piece for horn that has a 3-octave scale in it. There aren't any. Tell me a piece that has a 2-octave scale in it. There aren't any there either. There are some that have a one direction, 1-octave scale. Not many, but there are some. Okay. So you are a veterinarian and you're studying brontosaurus anatomy, and then you're going to go out and work on dogs and cats. Why aren't you doing something that you're going to do later? Why are we doing these really useless things? It's great. It's wonderful to memorize a page of the dictionary. Oh, isn't that great? You can memorize that. What are you going to use that for? Well, aren't you wonderful? You can do that. Very easy to grade you, having to spit back those words that you memorized. Sorry, I'm getting snarky again. So we're practicing very hard, years and years. Have to play it in proficiencies. Something that tells you almost nothing about your technique and 0 about your musicality. What could we do to make that different? And would be another topic. Won't answer the question unless you beg me to. Please beg me to. Sorry, I go on too long. I know, I'm sorry.
Not at all. And one thing I love about you is you are not just standing on a soapbox complaining, as some people do.
I am doing that, but I agree.
But you're not just doing that by any means. You are far more constructive and positive in how you actually go about exacting change in this area. And I want to talk a lot more about your games in particular. But before we move on to that, I'd like to just underscore something that was underlying some of what you talked about there, which is the status quo in terms of focusing purely on technique and adopting the doctrines and methodologies of the past just on faith that they must be good because they've been around so long. I think part of what keeps a lot of people trapped in that and stops us from questioning it is this idea that that is the route to best results. And so, okay, maybe we could dabble in that more creative stuff or maybe play with some improv. And I think in particular, people listening and hearing us talk about games may already be thinking, well, that just sounds like a waste of time or, a pastime. I want to get good on my instrument. And I think what was underlying a lot of what you just said was we're not talking about a distraction from accomplishing and achieving and becoming a great musician. Actually, a lot of this stuff could and should be central to becoming a great musician.
Oh boy, what a good question. Oh my goodness. Which one is the better taxi driver? The one who drives up and down Main Street only, or the one who takes a little more time and investigates all the side streets, this way and that way and other ways? The way we learn basically very few ways, very few paths to study, say, technique, and we do them over and over, long after we need to, long after it serves any purpose except to, that's all we know. And we think we're done because that is the paradigm. Here's your scale, 1, 2, 3 octaves, go up and down. That's all you will do for the rest of your life. Now, what improv is one useful definition is that it is making your own decisions about what to do next. And here's the funny thing, the ironic thing is that everyone does this all day long, called conversation. And it's easy and it's very useful. It expresses what you want. You don't break into a sweat. You don't worry about missing a word or something. You're not paralyzed by, did I speak perfectly? It gets that part of the job done. You could imagine a world where you could only speak and memorize sentences that the great orators had said. Oh, well, how nice for you. But you can't get anything done, or it's in a much more limited way. There's another saying in education that is, if you want your students to get smarter, you want their IQ to go up, let them make some decisions. And they don't make any decisions in the traditional classical way. They only follow orders. They only do what their teacher tells them. Now, that's not to say students shouldn't learn what their teacher's teaching, but there has to be the side where they make their own decisions. And that I can easily see, and I've heard it before, and that was it was taking a big risk when I used the word games in the title. You think because music is serious, you don't play games. We're serious. We only do what's serious, no fun, things we have to endure. Sorry, again, doing it again. To get through. But in fact, the best way to learn something is to make it playful, like children. If they had to be serious about the way they learn to speak and the way they learn to interact with people and they're growing up, they would never get any of it done. But if you make it a game, suddenly it is fun. Fun is motivating. I know we're not supposed to have fun. Fun is motivating. If it's motivating, you do more of it. If you do more of it, you get better at it. If you're not worried about mistakes so much, you like babies don't worry about, they said goo goo gaga instead of chrysanthemum, they learn pretty fast. You don't criticize them, you applaud their efforts, you cheer when they say mama. And we are, one of the toxic things about classical study is that we have defined music, the reason to do music and the way to do music, and you should feel bad if you do it any way, is to get virtuoso, is to play many notes very well and perfectly. And that means lots of study, and that makes amateurs say, oh, why do I even bother? because I actually, this happened to me once. One of my projects, it was years ago, but one of my grad students took the devil's advocate, and I said, we're going to compose a piece. Everyone's going to learn to get their feet wet in composition. And he said, why should I compose? I'm not Beethoven. Nothing I write will be as good as what the great masters have done. Why should I bother? And I mumbled something that I'm embarrassed about now. I don't think I did very well. But later, it occurred to me that that was the perfection trap. And what it does is it prevents you from doing anything. And the reason you do it is because it's interesting and fun, and it's personally enriching. And Beethoven's not composing anymore. He's only decomposing. I'm sorry about that one. It is engaging in the arts is for everyone. And the virtuoso perfection trap is going to discourage a lot of people from trying it. It's the reason you do sports is not because, well, you don't say, I'm not going to do any sports because there are better people than me. There's better people. I don't care who you are. There's better people than you in anything. Sports, cooking, anything you can think of, there's better people. So that is not the reason that you don't do it. You do it because it's interesting, it's fun, it's personally enriching, it's healthy, mind and body. So we can't let that part of it stop us. Now you're part of the frivolous nature of the game nature. I just was trying to make the point that playful behavior actually you learn much faster. I just read something the other day that if you do something in a routine way, it takes 800 repetitions to learn it. If you do it in a playful way, it takes like 40 repetitions. So it's a much stronger, faster way. Actually, been doing it in a playful manner than doing it in the serious manner. The thing is that we, like the taxi driver, and this is something that everybody could use, is the easiest way to become a creative musician, assuming you are in the old model of you don't do anything, is to take anything you're doing right now and change one thing. If you're playing octave scales, you don't have to change everything and turn it into virtuoso cadenza. Just change one thing. Start today. How about playing it a little louder? That's a change than you usually do. Play a little faster, a little slower, a little softer. How about not making all the notes the same length? Why do we ever do everything in 4/4? Put on a metronome, see if you can play between the beats. We play everything in octaves. Pick a different length. Try every length. See how different it feels if you play only 6 notes or 4 notes, or you're playing a pattern of notes that doesn't match the metronome click. It's clicking 4 and you play 3 over that, play tuplets, play in a different meter. There's a million ways that you can just do a little bit, just do one thing. It's just a little bit harder, and watch what happens. The first thing I notice is I wake up. I become more alert. Wow, that was a little harder. I had to pay attention, not because when I do things I've done 10,000 times, oh, aren't I wonderful doing this again? I am asleep. I'm not even paying attention. I'm getting worse. But when you add one little tweak, one little different thing, it gets interesting again. It's like the first day, it's like being in love a little bit. And a way to even enhance that more is to do it with somebody else. Here's another part of the paradigm that is not very good, and that's our paradigm for practice is alone, like a monk in a cell, a lighthouse keeper, only by yourself. You can do almost everything with somebody else, and it doesn't even have to be your same instrument. And now it really gets interesting because now you do the most important part of improvisation, which has nothing to do with technique. It's just listening, like your conversation. A good conversation is someone listening to what's going on, responding, and then carrying the conversation a little farther. And what you do, you listen to your partner, you listen to yourself. What just happened? Should I repeat that? Should I twist a little bit? Have we been doing this a long time? Now let's do something different. How can I support that? Should I be in the foreground, the background? Should I make it a little louder? Should I respond? Should we have a little conversation back and forth? He says something, I say something. There are so many ways that we are kept entirely innocent of in classical playing. Doesn't happen unless somebody else says it. That when you start doing this, you find out A, it's easy, B, it's fun, C, why the hell haven't we been doing this since the first day we started on our instruments?
Amazing. That's a wonderful illustration, I think, of the possibilities and the payoff. And before we dive into games, because I like that you clarified that the games are a way of framing this overall attitude, this approach, this concept of what improv can be. It's not that games are the be all and end all, it's that they capture the playfulness and they give people an easy way in. So before we talk specifically about the games, I wonder if you could share that philosophy in a nutshell, or your own definition of what improv can be that makes it accessible in that way.
Well, if we want a definition that maybe helps the people who are trying to make the transition, and that is, it is a procedure, it's a technique to work on both your technique and your musicality at the same time. We separate the two. That's another problem with classical music, is everything is separated. History, theory, composition, your instrumental technique, what have I left out? All of the things are studied separately, and there you can play all your pieces and not know anything about the harmony or the composer or anything else. Just get the notes right. And what improvisation does as really a much more useful technique in studying anything you're working on is it brings everything together. It integrates all of those things. You need everything, theory, you need all the theory you can get to understand what you're doing. You cannot play anything unless you understand what you're doing. And you know what you're doing. You don't just make blind noises in the air. You make a conscious intention, a decision about what to play, and it doesn't matter what that is. It can be one note. That's the problem. Classical musicians try to do too many notes at first, and then they choke and they don't know what they're doing. They're playing just like they do scales. They have no intention when they play the scales except following orders. And when you have to make decisions, now you have to think and you have to respond and you have to listen. And that's all new at first, although they do it every day when they converse. You do exactly that when you talk to somebody. And so it's hardest to start. But once you start and restrict yourself to things that are easy, one note is fine. Then it becomes easier to choose the next note, and then suddenly you can go on from there. What the games do is they provide little sandboxes to play in and not choke on too much, trying to do too much too soon. People don't expect when they first study Mandarin to be auctioneers in Mandarin the first week. Unfortunately, classical players pretty much expect that of themselves when they start playing. They think I should be exactly at the same level when I start doing this new thing I've never done before. And that chokes them off. There has to be, because they're using the wrong standard. They're trying to see how good the fish is on the bicycle. They're trying to say, well, the standard is lots of notes and very fast and all perfect, because they're using the standard of classical music. But nobody told them what to play, so they choke. They've learned, they don't know what to talk about, and because they don't know how to listen. So what the games do is any creative artist's best friend, which is restrictions, limitations. Like Stravinsky said, he said, if you give me any note in the universe, I can't write anything. But if you give me 5 notes, restrict me to 5 notes, I can write a symphony, no problem. And that's exactly what this is. So we very often, one of the games we start, when we start in our class, with the brave people that actually dare to take this, my improv class, we do only rhythm for the first couple of weeks because there's no pitches to worry about. You can't play any wrong notes, which usually means wrong pitches. And we do lots of rhythm, which is notoriously the weakest point of any classical musician's training, is rhythm, because we kind of get it around the edges, and we're mainly conservative, get the note, don't miss the note. It's all pitch. I wrote a 447-page book on horn technique. There is zero about rhythm in that. It's all about how do you get the note. So guilty as charged. So they say, well, I need lots of notes to make something interesting. No, you don't. Drummers every day make amazing things with just one sound, with one no pitch. A proto pitch is then timbre change. If you hit the side of the drum, that's kind of like changing notes in a way. So, but we start off and then we play a game invented by Walter Matthau in his wonderful book, The Listening Book. It's called a map falap, as much as possible from as little as possible. You have one note, go wild. What can you do with that one note? Can you just, change the rhythms, change dynamics, change what you can change, but now you don't have to worry about pitches, which is the big bugaboo. How can I play a lot of pitch? Because, the old fish bicycle thing. So what the games do is they supply limitations in various ways, so that it's much easier to make a choice. Which, if you have 10,000 eggs, which ones are you gonna pick? That's a tough choice, but if you have 3 eggs, pick 2. Okay, a lot easier to make the choice, and that's sort of what the games do. They're divided up into categories, somewhat arbitrarily, but it's melody games, rhythm games, harmony games, depiction games, about 30-some categories. In the second book, I added a new one, movement games, because movement games are still making choices about what to do, and it's a great way to warm up. It's a great transition for classical musicians into making decisions about what to do. So just start with something you can do very well, very easy. Move your arms, move your legs. And then you say, well, this is not hard. Okay, got that. There's also spoken games. Everybody knows how to speak pretty much. So we use some of the goes, make decisions on what to say next. You have 30 seconds to talk about bananas. Go. Easy. Just doesn't matter what you say something. And so we ease into a little bit. Another thing that I also do in my classes, I do with my horn students as well, is we do sound painting. You can go to soundpainting.com, look on YouTube, look for videos, just do a search for sound painting, which is a gestural system of improvisation invented by New Yorker Walter Thompson 40-some years ago. And it's like whole group, long tone play. And then you can say volume up, volume down, pitch up, pitch down. And there are many, many ways to do that. And it's very easy transition for a classical player, because the conductor asks for something general, and then the player just picks something specific. Play a long note, which note you choose. All right, not too difficult. And so we use that. We give, actually, my horn students, we give 2 concerts at the end of the semester. The first concert is entirely improvised, and it has sound painting in it. It has all these games. And then the second concert is their repertoire piece they've worked on all semester. Doing an improv concert sounds terrifying, but once you've started and see how easy it is, you can't wait to get up there and show everybody what you can do and how you can make up stuff on the spot. My students have stopped asking me even for permission. They just put it in their recitals. They do it themselves. They add their own improv. They drive the other people in band. 2 minutes before band, they'll start making up a horn quartet on the spot, and everybody goes, "What? How do you do that?" And they just smile and look superior, and they have so much fun doing it. I just love that. It's far enough along that they do this without a qualm.
That was wonderful. I should clarify for the sake of our audio only listeners that when Jeffrey was talking about the sound painting there were specific hand gestures and movements that he was using to kind of conduct the players. Am I right in understanding one person is acting as conductor with those gestures and the player or players are responding?
Yes, exactly. You're making these predefined gestures, although if you want to, you can make up your own. There's 1,500 gestures in the language, but you don't need more than I can teach somebody 20 in an hour. We can learn 30 some in if we have two rehearsals. I've done improv uh, in other schools, for instance, where I come in and we have two rehearsals and then they do it in concert that evening because gesture is everyone's native language. Everyone understands body language, facial expression. So gesture you learn immediately, and you can learn many gestures. You only have to make a choice on what you do specifically for the general gesture. And I just got back from every other year I teach an improv course in Nova Scotia at Acadia University for master's student, very special creative music master's program. I'm just the last, I'm the very tail end of it and giving this capstone course 3 hours a day and doing improv. And so everybody learns to be a sound painting conductor. And now there have been 100 of these students, mostly Canadians, and now they're all over Canada using sound painting, using all of these improv games in their daily life. And it's really interesting to hear from them. You know, you get your band, you're working on a contest piece, and they're all at the end of the hour, they're kind of flagging, and suddenly you make the everybody play a gesture in sound painting, and boy, do they wake up. Now what's going to happen? And then you do something, and it could be you can use your instrument, you can use your voice, it could be only certain people, and as soon as you're doing creative music, people wake up because they don't know what's coming. And it's because that's one of the problems with classical music. You know what's coming. You have worked on it. You better know what's coming. Uh, Although we need to be good sight readers as well. But the point is not to that one is better than the other or anything else. But what we need is both of them. And as I say, don't let school get in the way of your education. It's up to you not to wait for school to right all wrongs and do everything it should be doing. It does what is easy to do, not necessarily what's any good, and that is the oral creative side of music. And that's what interests me, to add that to all the stuff we do anyway. We have to do, it's part of the thing, we're all in that system, but we can add the other one. Now just one more thing, I'll stop. You do hear people, especially band directors, who I totally admire. Unbelievable job they have to do, and they say, "I don't have any time for this creative crap. I've got way too much to do. I've got to do this and that, and organize the Normandy invasion every day. It's just amazing. I don't have time for this." Well, you don't have time not to do it, because when you start doing creative activities, what happens is your students now are taking ownership of the music. Now it's their music. Now they are learning how to create their own music that they want to do. It's very motivating, very fun. Now that's a short step to composition. If you know how to improvise, all you do is write it down and polish it, and you have a composition. And pretty soon your students are doing stuff that you could use in concerts. They're doing little arrangements, doing compositions. You could add 10 seconds of sound painting in the middle of a piece. What's also fun is in a piece where I've done this with even sixth graders. In the middle of a concert, a regular concert, you can turn around and you sound paint the audience, who, having watched you a little bit, has figured out some of the simple ones. They can do a long note and just hum a thing, and they love it. Suddenly they're paying attention. They're not just checking their iPhone. Now they're part of the act, and it transforms the audience's experience as well. So there is not enough time not to add creativity and make everybody's lives richer, better, and want to do what you want to do, music.
Tremendous. Well, that sounds so much fun, but I'm conscious that I've drunk the Kool-Aid. Like, I'm definitely a convert on this, and I know if I know our audience, there are probably a few thoughts in their head right now. And one
Oh, sure.
is working with someone, that sounds scary. Can I really do it with a buddy if neither of us really know what we're doing? The second is that sounds great, but I don't really have the oral skills. Like, I don't have the ear to know what to do improvisationally. And the third is probably just tell us some more improv games because this does sound a little bit fun.
Well, the barrier, as I said, is has nothing to do with anyone's level or instrument. The barrier is entirely mental. It's in our attitudes and what the way we've been trained. We've been trained to think a certain way. The paradigm of classical music is what, or of the educational system, and classical music is what you do. You, the student, what you do has no value, except as far as you are able to parrot what you're supposed to parrot and repeat back perfectly. So we're very reluctant to try anything. We because we might make a mistake. We're back to that again. The reason we don't try is because the dreaded mistake. Now, I have to say, in all the years I've been doing this, many workshops and lessons and everything, I've only had one complete failure, and that was I was doing a workshop for some clarinets and doing all the usual things, and was going great. But there was one person. She was a grad student, wonderful player, and I couldn't get her to put the clarinet in her mouth to play. I said, pick any note, the easiest note, the most comfortable note you want to, and just play that. That's your, you choose. She wouldn't do it. She was so terrified of doing anything that somebody didn't dictate every aspect that she couldn't even take a breath and play any note of her choice. Every other one person, the hardest part is starting and getting past your education. I say, just forget everything you've done. And that's why we play a lot of these warm-up games, like the movement and the speaking and a map flap. Just get started. Now, if you want to start and you have a buddy who first you have to get past the barrier and just say, can we dare to do this? Are we brave enough to start? And I would say a great way to start is do glacier music, I call it. And that is just play long notes. Assuming you have an instrument that plays long notes, or do a tremolo if it doesn't. Pick any note, pick your easiest note, pick your most comfortable note, and play that as long as till you run out of breath or whatever. And then listen. And then listen, and because the biggest thing is listening. It doesn't have anything to do with your technique. It has to do with listening and responding. So you listen to what's going on. Listen to what they're playing, what you're playing. Stop anytime you want. Take a breath. It's okay if you're both silent or if only one's playing. That's fine. And listen some more. Listen to now when you take a breath, when you start over, take a new note. If you want, you can go to the same note. At some point, you'll say, okay, a little not quite so terrified of this thing, making a decision on what to play. So I'll pick another note. Pick the note right next to it. Pick your second most comfortable note. Okay. All right. Now you're settling in a little bit. Okay, I got this. But I'm getting a little bored. What if I do something? What if I make swell a little bit? Okay, so add some swells. What if you squeeze your lips or your mouthpiece or whatever, and you make it wiggle a little bit? Oh, that's fun. I know you have my permission to have fun. All right, everybody has my permission. You need permission, you got it. I have my permission. I have Christopher for permission. Go ahead and try something. If you need to, lock the doors. Don't let anybody hear you. I know you're terrified of someone judging you by your new effort. Everyone is allowed to learn. Okay, try it and then see now he's doing that and I'm doing that. Okay, now let's try something. Let's do a new game. It's only long notes, but you both take a breath and you pick a note of your independently. And then as soon as you play, see if you can both find the same note as quickly as possible. Just move around diatonically, pick a scale so you know what you're in if you want. C major, that's fine. Okay, he picked a note, you picked a note. Unless you were lucky enough to pick the same note, you're on different notes. Now find each other, hide and go seek. All right, oh man, how quick can you do that? All right, do it slurred, do it tongued. Try the other one soft, you loud, switch. Um, let's do it. Now let's do the same thing, only let's do it with short notes. Okay, really short note. Okay, what was his note? What was your note? Okay, okay, come together. See if you can find the same note. Okay, let's do another game. Let's do pick your note, but let's play fast as notes you can play on that one. Okay, okay, that was great. That sounded amazing. Now let's do one where you pick. Just make it sound random, like marbles falling down a wooden staircase, where he's random and you're random. Okay, good. Now let's do that game again. And this time, every once in a while, hold one of the notes longer, whenever you want. Okay, good. All right. Wasn't that was interesting. Now, let's do this. Now, this time, let's change the game. And if you both are long at the same time, you have to hold it until you run out of breath, or 8 seconds, whichever comes first. Okay, you can see. You can go on and on like that. There are 2 rules to improvisation, and it has nothing to do with virtuosity. It's the first rule is pick something. You're on the note committee. Pick something that is comfortable and safe and easy for you. Oh, just find the easiest thing you can do. Okay, stay safe, stay secure. Keep your blood pressure down. Okay, and gradually you will overcome that terrible disease known as perfectionism, and worrying about being judged and all the things that are stopping you from having a voice in music, which everybody has, and school has never told you that you have your own voice the same way you have a conversational voice. Okay, that's rule 1. Pick something safe, comfortable. Rule 2 for later is ignore or break rule 1 as often as possible. Go wild, try any damn thing and just see what the hell happens. All right, nobody's gonna die. Wow, you might discover something really amazing. But you got to get through one where you're not worried so much about your ego. We involve our ego in everything because it's about perfection. Nobody's perfect, so you're going to lose that one right away. Now it's just about being interesting and listening. Okay, that happened. So what might we do next? That was interesting. The first thing we do after in my class always, after we do an improv, we don't say, was that bad or good? We don't say, do we like it or not like? We say, what just happened? And we try to develop a memory for what happens, because if, like in a conversation, you need to remember what you've talked about and not make up a new topic on every sentence. You talk about a subject. So you try to remember, what did I do? How do we start? Then what happened? Where did it go?
Wonderful. That did exactly what I hoped it would, which was paint a really vivid picture for people, I think, of how easy and fun this can be, as well as giving them some very specific suggestions they can go away and try immediately. I know that for those who are feeling captivated by this and eager to go and put this into action, they're going to quickly want more examples, more instruction, and obviously like the spirit of this is to get away from someone telling you exactly what to do, but at the same time your books are an incredible treasure trove of ideas to play around with, and I'd love if you could talk a little bit about those books and what they have in store for people.
What the books do is, like any book or method, what it hopes is it saves you time. You could rediscover all the stuff I did on your own. I'm sure you could, but I can save you a lot of time, because the especially in the first volume, it says it's a lot of how to. How do you make a melody? No, I don't know about you, but nobody ever told me to make a melody in school. It may just copy somebody else's melody or play it like somebody else. Um, so how do you make a melody? It's interesting. We play 10,000 of them and we have no idea how to do it. Try that. Try a student. Ask a student, how do you play a melody? How or what are some principles on how to make a melody? Well, I don't know. No one ever asked me. Then what about how do you be an accompaniment? We have to think about, you're not always the soloist. How do you accompany people? What about, there's some pointers for working on technique in this way. How about motivic development? We start, and as usual, you start very simple and then you build step by step. Goo goo gaga, mama, horsey, ducky, you build on that. But it's fun and interesting every step of the way, partly because it's social. Improv is social. You do it by yourself, and you can and should, but you're still working with your metronome, your rhythm source. And very soon, preferably from the very beginning with your teacher, your enlightened teacher, is you play duets, and you can then expand that into chamber music and so on. So what the book has, it has explanatory material in how to do things, and then it has many, 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 many different kind of games. Some are for one person, some two, three, four, five, as many as you can fit in the room. Games, they're all mixed together. So there's, I don't know, 100 melody games. I don't remember. And then the different categories, and they're arranged. Drives some people crazy because it's not in alphabetical order. It's in the order that I kind of thought was the most important. So it's. I think it starts with rhythm, which I think is the best way to start. Don't worry about pitch. The harder one, which basically we just start on, and the end of my course is harmony, because harmony is about right note, wrong note. And there's a way to do that and be much simpler, not worry about pitch, missing notes so much. But harmony is a more complex topic that we wait on a little bit on that one. And then there's many kinds of notes, like depictions, where you don't have to worry about notes at all, and you get to use extended techniques. Extended techniques are a real pain in the butt in classical music. They're hard to notate, hard to reproduce what you think that little squiggle is supposed to mean. And it's just annoying, basically. And there's lots of them that are just impossible, or the composers have gotten a little drunk on writing extended techniques and really come up with a lot of nonsense. But if you choose them, it's amazing, because you can choose the ones that work for you, that are easy. You don't have to notate them. And you can use those in the depiction games. Like the one typical one is adjective noun. Now in the back of the book, there's I call the improv generator. There's a huge of adjectives, nouns, and then musical styles, and you can put those together at random. The philosophical gorilla, for instance. Okay, start playing. What does that sound like? Well, who knows? You figure it out as you go. And you can use that, and you can use extended techniques there. You can do whatever you want. There's a lot of resource material in the back. There's all the books I collected, books, articles, magazine articles, websites, dissertations, ton of stuff. There's even more in the second book. The second book, which is even longer, came out in 2016, has 642 games, I think, less explanatory material, because I will have assumed you have volume one, and even more resources in the back, things that have been collected in the 8 years since. So lots of, if you want to do further study, you can use that. So there's really material enough for a lifetime in these. And then the other books are broken down into smaller areas, one for piano teachers, one for vocal. I did those with a collaborator. There's one for duets, one for one person. Those are thinner, so you can carry any case. These are a little annoyingly big. The volume one and volume two, they're only good. The good thing is they have a lot of material. The bad thing is they have a lot of material. They're heavy to lug around, maybe healthy to lug around, but anyway, it's kind of in the old days, the complete whole earth catalog. It's has everything you can imagine to get started and refer to, but it should be considered, everything in there should only be considered a beginning. Everyone should say, you have permission, you are actually ordered to change anything in any of them, tweak them, combine them, put two together, put four together, change whatever it is to whatever your situation is, and adapt them. Use that as a springboard to your own version of it. Nothing, I don't want it to be the classical written stone thing. You don't have to do anything I say there except be inspired by it and change it and use it to your own purposes. Just start, and that's the only, just start. Anybody should feel free to send me an email if they have questions or if they want to tell me about their experiences. I'm always happy to hear about what other people are doing.
Tremendous. Well, Jeffrey, I so admire and applaud the work you're doing and the books you've put out there into the world. So all that remains is to say a huge thank you for coming on the show and sharing these ideas with our audience today.
Well, thank you for letting me go on far too long about it. I just love to talk about it almost as much as I love to do it.
Oh, hey, one more thing. If you enjoyed this video, please take a second to like it on YouTube, and if you haven't already, please also subscribe to our channel there. That's going to help make sure you get all our latest videos as soon as they come out, and it also helps us reach more people, which means more episodes, better guests, and everybody wins. So please take a second to like this video and hit subscribe.